What's good, family? Smash the like button, subscribe, and lick off the bell. Wow, we have some breaking and truly shocking news right now. Let me read it to you. Listen, normally, you know the YB, normally I'll monologue for the first few minutes, but check this. The news is too explosive for the monologue. Yeah, we must press forward right now with the facts. Check this. Deontay Wilder doesn't believe that Tyson Fury actually contracted C-19 before their third fight was postponed nearly 3 months ago. Fury assured the public and BoxingScene.com during his recent interview that he indeed tested positive for C-19 towards the end of an intense training camp for another WBC heavyweight title fight with Wilder that was supposed to take place July 24th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. That was the second time, according to Fury, that he'd battled C-19 since the Shieldemic began in March 2020. Nevertheless, BoxingScene.com and the YB have learned that Fury's team never provided medical documentation of a failed C-19 test early in July to anyone that represents Wilder in an official capacity, or the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Let me tell you that one more time. Yeah? Rewind. Yeah? Bowl selector style. The YB has learned through one of his many informant dons deep inside Fury's camp that Team Fury never provided medical documentation of a failed C-19 test to anyone that represents Deontay Wilder in an official capacity or the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Oops. Wilder's team didn't demand that Fury's representatives provide proof of his failed C-19 test. However, Fury was not required to submit such medical documentation to NSAC once their ESPN Fox Sports pay-per-view fight was postponed 2.5 months from July 24th to Saturday night. To the best of my recollection, the NSAC did not receive any documentation from the fighters that they were scheduled to fight on the Fury-Wilder card. Bob Bennett, executive director of NSAC, told the YB in reference to the postponed July 24th event. Additionally, none of our ringside physicians administered a lab-based PCR test to any of the fighters on the Fury versus Deontay card. Wow! Evan Korn, a spokesperson for Bob Arum's Top Rank, Fury's co-promoter, informed the YB that Fury failed a C-19 test administered early in July by Critical Mass Gathering Medicine, PLLC, which has been contracted to conduct C-19 tests for fighters on Top Rank cards since June 2020. One of NSAC's physicians, Dr. David Obert, is a managing member of Critical Mass Gathering Medicine, PLLC. But Obert didn't administer Fury's COVID C-19 test. Wow! Tom Brown, the president of TGB Promotions, which represents Wilder, could not be reached for comment relating to Fury's failed C-19 test early in July. Tim Smith, a spokesperson for Al Gaiman, PBC Champions, with which Wilder is affiliated, declined to comment. Wilder couldn't be reached for comment either, but the former WBC heavyweight champion stated during a recent episode of the PBC podcast that he believes Scary faked having C-19 to buy more time to prepare for their third fight. Wow. So we just heard there. This right here is breaking news. You might not even appreciate how breaking this was. Yeah? All the way breaking this was. Now, I want to go back to some earlier points because ultimately here, and this is why I believe, even more so after this breaking news from one of my sources, I'm even more convinced that there is some sort of conspiracy thing going on between Wilder and Team Fury. Because earlier on in this document, earlier on when I was reading out the indictment against Tyson Fury, it said that no proof has been provided to NSAC or anyone in Wilder's team. However, on that basis, Wilder's team never demanded to see any, when it appears they had the right to demand some if they'd have wanted to, if that makes sense. Now NSAC go on to say that, oh well, we don't make it obligatory. But really, would that not be etiquette? Would it or would it not be good business etiquette? I mean, are you positive or not? Oops. That for me is the end all and be all. Bottom line. Think about it. Okay, you've just tested positive. Send the results into the commission. Send the results into your opposing team. Send the results into the fans that you've mugged off. I've been in contact with many dons who lost many coins because of your man's Tyson Fury back in July. People have booked holidays, booked flights, all kind of madness. Lost all the coins. Not as many as the YB lost, but you know what I'm saying? Coins gone, nonetheless. So this for me is, like I said, this is not only an indictment. It is an indictment. It's a bottom line indictment at that. 100% proof that Tyson Fury wouldn't even know a little bit about a positive test. Because if he did, he'd have sent one through to someone. But that said, as I mentioned earlier, this for me, this really, let's not forget, back in 2020, I told you, man, that something feels fishy to me about this whole Wilder and Fury situation. Let's not forget, what year was it? I think it was back in, what year was it? It must have been 2020. 2020, Wilder loses in February, yeah? Then it goes quiet for about 6 months. No one's really saying anything. Then all of a sudden, in July, they start arguing and Wilder starts saying, I want to fight. Then around September, Team Scary say, no, we don't want to fight, there's no fans. But during this period, you never hear Wilder stepping out and saying, listen, I don't care about the fans, I want you badly, I'm rock hard for you. Then all of a sudden we hear about the lawsuit. And that obviously doesn't do anything. I've never heard of something so mad. Allegedly, there was a judge, bearing in mind people, there's no paperwork of this. For example, when I saw Eddie Hearn in court in New York to sue Andy Ruiz for trying to be smart ass, that was all papered up. You could see the judge, you could see the court. This Tyson Fury thing, there's no paperwork for it on the internet. There's no paperwork from any of my sources. There's no paperwork from Team Wilder or Team Fury. All we've done is go based on what they've told us. Seriously, you try and find it. The alleged judge, oh, this man, like for example, I think it's quite coincidence, or you man tell me, yeah? Allegedly, the lawsuit started in like October 2020, yeah? For 6 months, we didn't hear a lick of nothing. And this judge, by the way, what's he doing all day? How did it take him 6 months to decide this? But anyway, 6 months go by, yeah? Don't hear nothing. Then, Fury signs the fight. So wait a minute. 6 months, you ain't say nothing. But then, the minute a big fight gets signed, all of a sudden my man want to be all in the video. Actually, I'm ordering. That for me is just that's way too convenient when it comes to Scary. Yeah? Way too. Oh, don't tell me. The whole court's been quiet for 6 months and now all of a sudden they want to pop up. Doesn't make no sense to me. But the reason I give you that background is to say that all the way through this, they've always been working together, it almost feels like. Again, why didn't Wilder complain when Team Fury came out in September 2020 and they were saying, oh, there's no fans, we don't want to fight. Wilder didn't say, yeah, I want to fight. Which is odd. I thought you want to fight. Then, allegedly, they go court, but there's no court papers. There's no evidence of the court. Why would they? What's the benefit to them of making out a court case? Well, I don't know, God knows. But it adds more press and I don't know. It gives Fury an ability to shield AJ for that 6 month period. And then, to add insult to injury, Fury then pulls out in July, yeah? And Wilder, we now know, didn't even... Well, we know that anyway, but now we can confirm Wilder didn't even demand proof. What is that? Now, either Wilder's team are completely inept, which is a high possibility, but an even higher possibility, in my opinion, is the fact that They were working together. And let's not forget, initially one of my sources told me that back in July, when the news broke that Fury was pulling out, don't forget that the allegation was that they were doing it because they hadn't sold no tickets, which would be a joint thing, wouldn't it? That would be both people. So that narrative certainly holds up based on this. Because if Fury and Wilder both didn't want to fight, then it makes sense why Wilder wouldn't demand proof of the C-19 test. And why he's been so he wasn't fussed, was he? I remember Tyson Fury was chanting on the Wednesday, was positive on the Thursday allegedly, and then on that same day, within a few hours, Shelley Winkle come out on Boxing Social saying, "Don't worry, we spoke to the judge, it's all good." I'm like, wait a minute, it took you 6 months for the judge to say anything. Now all of a sudden you got his phone number, and you can just book things in like that. If it was that quick, why didn't you book this in back in December when you opened the case? Oops. It just seems a bit loosey-goosey to me. I didn't know you could just ring a judge and I don't know, I've sorted it with him. I didn't know that's how it works. And besides, why were you, bearing in mind you allegedly won this court ruling, why were you so happy to reschedule it? Why didn't you ask for some punitive damages? Oh look, Judge, we've already had to take him to court for 6 months, now he's playing more games. I'm sure you could have won some sort of leverage, whether it be contractual leverage, where, well, you know what, we're going to give you an extra 5% of the purses or whatever. Oh no, Team Wilder were happy to roll right over, not demand anything, not demand no penalties, and just rebook it. It's very fruity. And then, by the way, not even demand proof. So yeah, when Wilder won't sit there and talk, that's why I don't really rate. That's what this whole situation for me is weird. And I'm glad that we got the fight on Saturday. To be fair, I am actually looking forward to it as it happens. It's going to be, well, it's going to be what's going to be. But this whole political situation around it is odd to me. Super odd. Now, I guess people will say, well, who cares if he was really positive or not? But it's the point for me. It's the principle of it. It's all well and good for these big dogs like Wilder and Fury, but there were people, there were working class or whatever class people who had booked tickets, yeah, and they got played. They've lost money, they've lost time, they've lost effort. And for this to be allowed, for people to be allowed to lie, or not provide no proof. Oh, I'm sick. If you're sick, you should have to provide proof. Especially in today's day, in 2021, fighters are always pulling out. Why isn't there a higher kind of burden of proof almost? You shouldn't, in my opinion, you shouldn't just be allowed to pull out willy-nilly. If you're sick, or if you got, you know what I mean? Oh, my arm's broke. Show the scans. Show the doctor's report. If you got C-19, show the positive. It shouldn't be hard, should it? You've either got it or you're not. You either got it or you're lying. And if you're lying, is that allowed? Obviously it's allowed, but what's that about? Anyway, you heard there, it's now definitive. Tyson Scary, not a lick of proof of anything. He was nothing wrong with the dude. He pulled out because he's scary. But either way, we're here now. Hopefully, I think we'll probably get there now. I think the odds. So, yeah, the odds are pretty high. He's going to make it to the ring. Not even Scary could mess this one up, but then again, I wouldn't be shocked. But what we know now is, let's see how it plays out. Because we'll know from the first bell if Scary really is scary. Because he'll pull an AJ and go in there and his backside will fall out. No doubt.